I'm Melissa Sims, your host for A Mindful Moment. Thank you for joining me as we explore ways to increase mindfulness in our day-to-day experiences through weekly topics, expert interviews, and guided mindfulness meditations. Mindfulness is presence, awareness. It's paying attention to what's happening within us and around us. Mindfulness increases our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. It can also enhance our focus and productivity. Perhaps most importantly, in today's uncertain world, mindfulness strengthens our ability to be more compassionate toward ourselves as well as others. Are you your own worst enemy? Do you ever start to feel like there is one common theme in your shortcomings or your failures? Can that common denominator perhaps be you? I do think that sometimes fate truly has things covered. Then there are other times I know that things could have gone very differently if I had made a better choice or gone down a different path. But in reality, we control our fate, in my opinion. Our daily doings, our behavior, our choices, our ultimate outcomes. So maybe you didn't get that last client, or maybe you were passed over for a promotion. Maybe there's a long term goal you have that just keeps getting pushed to the back burner. Well, what's the reason? In my own life, I can definitely get in my own way, and I'm okay admitting that. I'll have days where I have so much to do, and I can see it staring me in the face. I know deep down that there are things I can do to make it easier for me to get those things done, but instead I make choices, usually unconsciously or out of habit, that inhibit me from getting them done. I have some long term goals like writing a book, narrating books for other authors, and even operating a vacation rental home business. But instead, I distract myself with the busy things in life and put those other things off for another day. I know I'm not alone. If you can be honest with yourself and look at some of your short term and long term goals and then why they're not getting accomplished, and then look at your everyday behaviors, and you see that some of them are maybe not helping you. I know that opening up my phone every morning and sitting down with a cup of coffee is my routine. That is likely not helping me have the most productive morning. But I tell myself I'll just spend 30 minutes on it and then get moving. Well, an hour later, I finally put my phone down after reading the news, playing Wordle, checking email, and sending my snaps. Did I really need to do any of that? Probably not. Could I have used that time a little more wisely? Yeah, I would actually like to start doing 30 minutes of yoga every morning and not waste my time on a device. So, what's stopping me? Well, my ego kicks in and starts telling me that, oh, well, you deserve some me time. You should just chill. But don't I also deserve the benefits of yoga each morning? Yeah. The most common self sabotaging behaviors include procrastination, making excuses for shortcomings, self medication with drugs or alcohol, comfort eating, and even worse, behaviors that can indicate self destruction. And those can range from substance abuse to self harm. We aren't always aware when we are sabotaging ourselves, but the biggest indicator is identifying patterns that somehow lead to stagnation, disappointment, and even failure, even if they aren't obviously doing so. So, what is the cause? Why would we continue to do this to ourselves, even if we know it isn't going to help us in the long run? Why wouldn't we want the very best for ourselves? Well, the reasons can be vast. One, fear of failure. Think about it. If I never try something, even if I really want to accomplish it, I can't fail. No one will see that I wasn't capable. No one can reject me if they don't even have the opportunity. That way, I won't have to deal with the emotions that come with failure. Two, low self esteem. Even though it might seem absolutely ridiculous on the surface, we can feel unworthy or undeserving of success. Of course, I deserve success, we tell ourselves. But that's on the surface. Deep down, there could be some underlying and unresolved issue that is telling your ego that you don't, in fact, deserve success or happiness. And self sabotage is just a way of reinforcing these negative beliefs. Three, fear of success. Now, this kind of lies in the comfort zone periphery. Success, if we haven't experienced it before, is a new territory. It's change. What does it look like? What changes is it going to bring to my life? Things are fine right now. Why would I want to rock the boat? Fear of the unknown in terms of success can be crippling for some, preventing them from taking the steps in order to achieve success in the first place. Four, lack of confidence. This is tying back into that fear of success and self esteem. But those who lack confidence in their abilities, they may self sabotage in order to avoid having to do something that they haven't even tried yet or test a skill that they have yet to use. This requires us stepping out of our comfort zones, and many of us really like our little comfort bubble. Now, there are obviously other contributing factors to self sabotage. The way people talk to themselves is a big one. If someone is constantly telling themselves that they are not good enough or that they will never succeed, they may start to pave the way to a self fulfilling prophecy. Also, people who lean toward perfectionism may have a high occurrence of self sabotage because they have a fear of not meeting their own impossibly high standards. Let's stop dwelling on the problem and let's talk about some solutions. But before I give you some tips on overcoming self sabotaging behaviors, I do want to point out that it's very important to seek help from a mental health professional if you or someone you know is struggling with self destructive behavior. And now this can range from serious depression to drug use to self harm, even suicidal tendencies. A trained therapist can work with the individual to develop a treatment plan that's appropriate and meets their specific needs. We do have a link at the end of the podcast in our show notes for you. If your issues don't tend to lead towards self destruction, but you still get in your own way a lot of the time, it's a good idea to try to find the root of the issue. So, taking some time for self reflection and preparing yourself for some real truths, as hard as they may be, is super important. If we can't be honest with ourselves, we are certainly not capable quite yet of moving forward toward growth. I'm sure you guessed it, but practicing mindfulness can help you start to support yourself by increasing your awareness of your thoughts and emotions, which can minimize those impulsive behaviors. So instead of automatically reacting to the distressing thoughts, the feelings, maybe the pressure of what's coming, and say picking up the bag of Cheetos to self soothe, we can learn to pause and observe what's going on within us before we react. So, what else can mindfulness do to help us stop the self sabotage train? Mindfulness can help us develop greater emotional regulation skills because we are now allowing ourselves to observe and understand our emotions without getting overwhelmed by them. It can help us tolerate those uncomfortable emotions without acting on them or engaging in these self sabotaging or self destructive behaviors. One thing lacking in a lot of us is the ability to go easy on ourselves. In our society, it is drilled into us that failure is not an option or show no weakness. And it's even furthered now with this girl boss mentality or hustler mentality. But if we can't fail and we can't show weakness, when do we learn? When do we grow? When do we heal? We must fail. It's part of life and it's part of the growth process. Mindfulness helps us build self compassion. So instead of judging ourselves every time we make a mistake or struggle, even, we can learn to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. and we can start to forgive ourselves a little easier. Self awareness is the key to mindfulness. We start to notice patterns in our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So, for example, when you know you are engaging in something that isn't really going to be helpful to your success, your happiness, your goals, just pause. Examine what triggered you to start that thing. Like, what feeling just ran through my body that caused me to grab those Cheetos or that glass of wine or binge watch a show instead of writing my thesis? Like, what was I actually thinking or feeling at that exact moment? So, by observing our patterns, we can become aware of those triggers that lead to our self sabotaging behavior. And that's where we learn to intervene before engaging in those harmful or unhelpful behaviors. So, self regulation is closely tied to self sabotage. If we don't know how to regulate our emotions, we frequently turn to something outside of ourselves to soothe. There are many studies that show how lacking self regulation is in our society. But one thing that those studies do have in common is that self awareness and mindfulness are keys to adequate self regulation. There are also behavioral therapies that can aid in interrupting those ingrained patterns of thought and action. And we'll have more on that in our show notes as well. I look at the way I wanted my life to look when I was younger. And this is a much different picture than what I had imagined. Was it fate? Was it my choices along the way? Or maybe a little bit of both? I'm not sure, to be honest. But I do know that I'm doing my best I can in that moment, even if I do fall backward into those self sabotaging patterns. I can at least recognize it, and that's a good start. It would be easy to be angry with myself or sit in shame over regrets and mistakes. The harder option is to choose to work on myself and go through some self discovery. I get so busy with the details of work, being a mom, being a wife, being a friend, that I forget about what I really want out of life. The hardest part for me was just to identify my behaviors. What habits do I have that are not helping me? A lot of emotions, resistance, and ego come up a lot, but I'm a work in progress. My goals are still there, and I'm learning that my roadmap for life just has a lot of twists and turns, but the destination remains. The key for me, at least, is to show myself compassion, to learn to be flexible, and to use the skills that I have in my toolbox to help me grow. Behavioral self regulation is defined as the ability to act in your long term best interest, consistent with your deepest values. So, when was the last time you checked in with yourself and revisited those values?
Until next time, I encourage you to meditate daily and be mindful in all of your everyday activities. Simply bring your full awareness to the present moment to build your mindfulness skills, paying attention to every detail of what you're doing, from washing dishes to work tasks to taking a walk. Your mind will wander, and that's normal. Each time you notice it has wandered, that's mindfulness. Consider how wonderful the world could be if everyone was mindful. You can help make that happen. It all starts with a mindful moment. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to other great shows like the Daily Meditation Podcast, Everything Everywhere, and Movie Therapy. We deeply appreciate your support at patreon.com/a mindful moment. Our podcast is now available to view on our YouTube channel, so be sure to follow us there and on Instagram at A Mindful Moment Podcast. Visit our website, amindfulmoment.com, to access podcasts, scripts, and book recommendations. A Mindful Moment is written and hosted by Teresa McKee and/or Melissa Sims. The Spanish version is translated and hosted by Paula Tile. Intro music, Retreat by Jason Farnham. Outro music, Morning Stroll by Josh Kirsch, Media Right Productions. Thank you so much for tuning in. This podcast is produced by Work to Live Productions.